Ladies and gentlemen, in a couple of seconds, you will hear President Trump at the Department of Justice explaining that anyone who committed crimes will be indicted, prosecuted, and convicted of those crimes. Not that big of a deal. But Democrats and media, or I should say loyalists within media, this is not, some kind of leap of logic. There's not one Trump supporter at the New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, The Atlantic, Daily Beast, Mother Jones, The Nation, Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, Esquire. Before you had Vice, BuzzFeed, major newspapers around the country. Not one supporter of Trump, yet he won the popular vote. So what does that tell you? Hit subscribe to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen. To my super chat, I can't do this without you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Daily Beast says Trump goes to DOJ for bonkers rant. He's bonkers, completely bonkers. He won the popular vote. Every battleground state, the Senate, kept the House, the presidency, and the Supreme Court is mostly conservative 6-3. I think the country is leaning more towards conservative viewpoints because, unfortunately, a great many people in media lie through their teeth. You will hear President Trump in a second. Hit subscribe right now. The indictments are going to be imminent. There's a lot of people who committed crimes. Now, I watched Bill Maher, today, and he keeps going on this. He has this viewpoint that it was totally fair and just that Trump was investigated and accused of being a Kremlin operative. Number one, the Steele dossier was literally purchased by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. Bill Maher, brilliant comedian, very knowledgeable, but unfortunately, with all due respect, very delusional when it comes to Trump. He has derangement syndrome beyond belief. I don't think Bill Maher knows what the Steele dossier is. I don't think he cares. I don't think he knows what it is. I don't think that he understands if the reverse were true. Had Giuliani and Trump purchased a dossier literally full of lies, fabrications, deceit against President Obama or Hillary Clinton or Harris or Biden, imagine the response from Bill Maher. But I want to just read you this. There was not a shred of evidence, and we'll get to President Trump in a second, but this is, and you're going to hear President Trump in a second, but this is the basis of his Department of Justice speech. And hit subscribe if you're new. This is the basis of why President Trump is going after John. Thank you to my super chat. Thank you, John. Thank you so very much. Your super chat is greatly appreciated, everybody. This is the basis of why he's going to go after people who committed crimes. Democrats, people in media lied through their teeth. They hyperventilated in the most apoplectic, hysterical manner about sources and conjecture and innuendo and, stories from sources that never panned out. This is what took place after a year and a half to 2 years of investigation. This is the Mueller probe. And Bill Maher was like, Paul Manafort, his campaign chair, had ties to intelligence. Literally, under President Obama, 20% of U.S. uranium capacity was allowed to be sold to the Kremlin. That's literally what happened, according to the New York Times. Okay, Trump didn't allow that. And oh, by the way, that country that Democrats were supposed to protect was invaded under Biden, not Trump. But here, page 17 of the Mueller probe. Bill Maher should read this. Second, while the investigation identified numerous links between individuals with ties to the Russian government and individuals, the same thing could be said about the Clinton Foundation and a whole bunch of Democratic donors. But here, government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign, the evidence was not sufficient to support criminal charges because literally they had nothing. They never had anything. They created a new Cold War simply because they couldn't stand the thought of having lost to Trump. Now they lost twice. And media for years lied, promoted conspiracy theories, and the usual suspects, the wonderful liberal pundits, the progressive Democratic Party liberal pundits, far left, they who make $500,000 to $1 million a year on various platforms, but they're, of the working class, yeah, right, lied through their teeth. Among other things, the evidence was not sufficient to charge any campaign official as an unregistered agent of the Russian government or principal. And our evidence about the June 9th meeting of hacked materials was not sufficient to charge criminal campaign finance violations. You want to know who got a campaign finance violation? The Clinton campaign and the DNC for purchasing a Steele dossier from a foreign operative that was riddled with intelligence, or I should say disinformation, from, it's said to be from the Kremlin. That's according to John Ratcliffe and others. Further, the evidence was not sufficient to charge any member of the Trump campaign, to charge that any member of the Trump campaign conspired with representatives of the Russian government to interfere in 2016. Why doesn't Bill Maher read this? It's page 17 of the Mueller probe. There was not a shred of evidence. President Obama, Brandon Clapper, set Trump up. And you'd have to be an absolute imbecile not to understand this. But they still believe in conspiracy theories. They still believe in their nonsense. And it's actually good for Trump because they're probably never going to win a presidential contest again. But anyway, let's continue. Hit subscribe. Thank you, John, to my super chat. Thank you. Let's get started. And I have to give you that background, ladies and gentlemen, because Trump at the DOJ, nobody has been lied about more than Trump. Nobody. And the way that, he's at the DOJ. And then Bill Maher and others say, it's completely nonpartisan, apolitical. The DOJ was an extension of the Democratic Party. That's why they went after Trump, not a shred of evidence that he tried to foment a rebellion, that he conspired in any illegal activity. Every single person that went after Trump, either failed or had their own dirty laundry and skeletons out for everyone to see. And the DOJ literally had people working there, working alongside the Clinton, or speaking with the Clinton campaign during the email investigation. You had a DOJ official who went to New York to indict Trump and prosecute him on something that wasn't even a crime, the campaign finance issue, and it's not even constitutional. A state cannot unilaterally decide that Trump committed a campaign finance violation. He could have paid Stormy with dollar bills. It wouldn't have mattered. So they lied, and that's what Hanze von Spakovsky, Bradley Smith, and Trey Traynor, all former FEC chairmen, have stated. The FEC dropped the case. The only people who paid FEC fines were the Clinton campaign and the DNC. That's why Trump is revoking security clearances from everyone. They all went after him and lied. And I cannot stand when people say, there were ties. 20% of U.S. uranium capacity under President Obama, and then the country that Democrats were supposed to protect literally got invaded. How many untold numbers of people lost their lives because of Democratic Party foreign policy? And then Bill Maher is a conservative journalist there, and then another journalist, an editor that I've known in the past, very nice person, but he goes to the conservative journalist, you're not a Trump Republican. He won the popular vote, Bill. Or what more do you have to know that Trump is the mainstream in terms of thinking in this country? The fringe are like a whole bunch of publications that are getting laid off, unfortunately, losing their actual news coverage or the news teams because people don't buy the same nonsense. Anyway, let's continue. Everything Trump says, almost everything is spot on, 100% accurate. Hit subscribe.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Pam, very much. What a job you're doing. And it's a true honor to be with you today. This is a storied hall, if there ever was one. And based on the crowd, I think we broke the all-time record. But as we begin a proud new chapter in the chronicles of American justice, this really is something. We're turning the page on 4 long years of corruption, weaponization, and surrender to violent criminals, and we're restoring fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. and you're the people that are doing it. Very, very proud of all of you. Under the Trump administration, the DOJ and the FBI will once again become the premier crime-fighting agencies on the face of the earth. People ask me, what am I going to do about law enforcement all the time? The fake news back there, they're asking me that all the time. What am I going to do? And when are you going to do it? And I answer them by saying I've already done most of it by appointing the people that I've appointed. They're sitting right here. They've done most of it. I don't do it. They do it. Right, Pam? I think, oh, you are so tough. They just don't know yet. Let me begin by congratulating the incredible people who will lead these historic reforms. And we start with somebody that you just saw, Pam Bondi. She's extraordinary, and I've known her very well for a long time. I watched her for a long time in Florida, for years in Florida, and highly experienced. She seems so young, but she's highly experienced, that I can tell you. She was a...
Does this seem like a bonkers speech, an unhinged speech? Oh my God! To Democrats, anything they don't like, to the mainstream, anything that they don't agree with is completely bonkers. This is a normal... Can you imagine Biden doing this? God bless him. Probably committed lots of crimes with graft and bribery, but God bless Biden. I don't want him to, suffer or anything like that. I want him healthy. Unfortunately, Democrats know very well for 4 years he wasn't. Unfortunately, that's the way the Democrats roll. They catapult a man who then they turn on in 2 seconds. It's like the OJ song, Backstabbers. Backstabbers. You think Biden could do this and speak? Every time Biden spoke, it was like, like you couldn't really comprehend what he was saying. He was slurring his speech, making up, garbled words, and everything was fine. But with Trump, they don't like what he says. Oh, it's bonkers. It's terrible. Oh my God. It was so nonpartisan and apolitical. You couldn't get a more political Justice Department than Biden's. You couldn't get it. If Trump indicts every one of his enemies, you wouldn't even get even 1/10 of how political it was under Biden. Let's continue.
A phenomenal attorney general in Florida, and he's going to do a really amazing job. Also, a new director of the FBI, Kash Patel. Kash, right. A man that I'm very proud of. I've known him and Emil for a long time under tremendous pressure. I saw these guys under some of the most corrupt judges. It's not even imaginable how corrupt they were. And these guys never wilted. They were not shy. They fought. They weren't afraid, and they were brilliant. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Principal Associate Deputy Attorney Emil Beauvais. And thank you both very much. Right. Great people. They're great people. The Chief of Staff, who's so highly respected, Chad Mizell. Thank you, Chad. Chad? Thank you, Chad. Our next administrator of the DEA, Terry Cole. Terry? Thank you, Terry. Good luck. Going to do great. Senior counsel to the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Boy, I've been watching him on television last couple of weeks. He is really a tough one, and he's a great one. Leo Terrell, you watch how good he's going to be. He's going to be so good. Thank you, Leo. Great guy. Assistant Attorney General of the Antitrust Division, who's got an incredible reputation. She'll do very, very well. Gail Slater. Thank you, Gail. Good luck. Great job. And we're joined by many, many great friends and terrific friends, and I won't be able to, too many to name, but some that I just see very quickly. General Flynn, thank you for being here. Here's a man who went through hell, by the way, and he shouldn't have. He's a patriot. He went through hell. We're also pleased to be joined by Senator Chuck Grassley and House Majority Whip. Hi, go sec. Hi, Chuck. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer. Tom, great job you're doing. Representative Guy Reschenthaler, one of the toughest names to say, but I got it perfectly, I think. And State Attorney General Ken Paxton, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Somebody who was with us early on, and she's really become a big star and very popular, Brenna Bird. Thank you, Brenna. Thank you very much. Steve Marshall, Alan Wilson, James Othermeyer, Chris Carr, Dave Sunday, Marty Jackley, as well as White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller. What a man Stephen is. Become a big star. Right, Emil? Steve Miller. Steve has been something very special. For generations, the Federal Department of Justice was one of America's most revered institutions. The men and women of the DOJ brought down the mafia, hunted down the killers, kingpins, and spies, tracked down terrorists and traitors, and tore down corrupt political machines all across America. This department commanded the respect and admiration of the entire world. And with Pam and Cash and all of the people I introduced and far more, big numbers, and all of you sitting back there, I recognize so many of you. But with you leading the way, it'll soon be the most admired and most respected of all. You're going to be more respected, and I really believe that there's also a lot of things to solve, a lot of problems to solve. But that's going to put you in the upper tier and maybe the top tier, and I believe that's going to happen. I'm so proud of the people in this room. But first, we must be honest about the lies and abuses that have occurred within these walls. Unfortunately, in recent years, a corrupt group of hacks and radicals within the ranks of the American government.
Okay, so this is the part where they're like, oh my God, oh, Trump, he's accusing the Democrats in the Biden administration of going after him, which of course they did. They went after Trump. The Colorado State Supreme Court tried to ban him on every ballot, which of course the Supreme Court completely overruled. Even the liberal justices sided with President Trump. Then Jack Smith went after Trump, saying he tried to, well, they didn't even get him on, trying to rebel against the country. He said that because Trump lied about Biden potentially gaining the Oval Office through corrupt means, which, by the way, it's Democrats lied about Trump and the Kremlin till to this day. To this day, they're suspicious. What they did was they tried to indict him because they said he lied. He knew he was wrong. No, not for 1 second did Trump ever believe he was wrong, and the majority of the country doesn't believe that Trump is wrong. Even the Democrats gave credence and credibility to everything Trump said about 2020 even when George Clooney said, yeah, we can't go with Biden. Oh, so he's the most popular candidate of all time, but his support evaporates in less than 4 years? Sorry, that's nonsense. So, yes, President Trump had legitimate questions and concerns. But they said, oh, he lied to the country, 18 U.S. Code 371, which, by the way, you could use to indict every single official that lied about Trump Russia. So then Jack Smith said he was not protected under a speech, and because the Democrats are so utterly inept, the Supreme Court actually made the presidency stronger than ever, because the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can't indict a president on a speech because you think the speech is a lie. Otherwise, Biden would have been indicted about, 15 times already. He lied easily 15 to 20 times in the 3 weeks that he said he was going to stay in the presidential contest. They literally forced Biden out because it was Weekend at Bernie's, the movie, not Bernie Sanders, who was cheated and said nothing. They purchased a Steele dossier. They said that Mar-a-Lago, he committed crimes, which of course he didn't. He was a president with the power to declassify, unlike Biden, who was a senator, couldn't declassify anything, or Clinton, who had literally classified and special access and top secret intel on servers. I mean, again, I don't know why I'm bringing up Bill Maher. It's like, oh, I can't. It's like you listen to Bill Maher. He's so certain about what he doesn't know. He just says things that he doesn't understand, doesn't know that a president could declassify. or that the Steele dossier was leveled against Trump, or that the Mueller probe said there was not a shred of evidence. And so it's like they believe in their fantasies. And it's a religion. Like Bill Maher is an atheist, but his religion is democratic politics. I like Bill Maher. I think he's, a brilliant comedian. He's one of the great comedians of our generation. And he's a very intelligent person, but see, again, a lot of intelligent people believe conspiracy theories about Trump. Everything Trump is saying now is 100% accurate.
Obliterated the trust and goodwill built up over generations. They weaponized the vast powers of our intelligence and law enforcement agencies to try and thwart the will of the American people. You remember the 51 intelligence agents that said, as an example, that Hunter Biden's laptop from hell came from Russia when they knew it came right from his bedroom. They knew that. It was a big lie, and they knew it so well. They spied on my campaign, launched one hoax and disinformation operation after another, broke the law on a colossal scale, persecuted my family, staff, and supporters, raided my home, Mar-a-Lago, and did everything within their power to prevent me from becoming the president of the United States. With the help of radicals like Mark Elias, Mark Pomerantz, and these are people that nobody's ever seen anything like it. So many others, but these are people that are bad people, really bad people. They tried to turn America into a corrupt communist and third world country. But in the end, the thugs failed and the truth won. Freedom won, justice won, democracy won, and above all, the American people won. There could be no more heinous betrayal of American values than to use the law to terrorize the innocent and reward the wicked. And that's what they were doing at a level that's never been seen before. And it's exactly what you saw with Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, and their cronies to do the building of the last 4 years. What they've ripped down is incalculable. But what you're going to build up is likewise something that will be breaking all sorts of records. They set loose violent criminals while targeting patriotic parents at school board meetings. They dropped charges against Antifa and Hamas supporters while labeling traditional Catholics as domestic terrorists. The Catholics, we did very well with the Catholic vote, so I want to thank them for that. They really did. Record.
And according to Josh Hawley, they infiltrated and went after Catholic churches. I mean, it's unbelievable what Democrats were doing. It's unbelievable. Without the uproar, without the indignation, it is unbelievable. They purchased a Steele dossier against Trump. You heard the Mueller probe report. You just saw it early when I first started. There was not a shred of evidence that Trump committed a crime with the Russians. Literally, President Obama's administration allowed, he could have vetoed it, even Snopes. I read all the fact checks and the Snopes, articles and all the rebuttals, and the New York Times literally stated the 2015 article that the last time they ever did investigative journalism against that actually showed Democratic Party corruption was an honorable thing the New York Times did. It was a wonderful thing. They haven't done anything similar since 2015. But 1/5 of U.S. uranium capacity. And guess what? The people associated with the Russian government had direct ties, let's just say, gave donations to a Democratic Party foundation. But Bill Maher and others are not concerned. They're not suspicious. Don't you understand? You can't be concerned. But Paul Manafort knew somebody who allegedly was working with the Kremlin. Okay. But the Mueller probe found there was zero evidence to charge Trump. So if Trump had allowed 20% of U.S. uranium capacity and that country was invaded when Trump was in office, what do you think Democrats would say? If Trump had private servers and his son had a laptop, what do you think Democrats would say? But of course, the Democrats get away with literally anything. There's zero suspicion.
Numbers. I would say, what's with the Catholics? They're really after the Catholics. So I don't know. They were after a lot of people. Maybe they didn't even know why. They imported illegal alien murderers, drug dealers, and child predators from all over the world to come into our country while putting elderly Christians and pro-life activists on trial for singing hymns and for saying prayers. They went to jail for that. Our predecessors turned this Department of Justice into the Department of Injustice. But I stand before you today to declare that those days are over, and they are never going to come back. They're never coming back.
They're never coming back because what's going to take place, hold on. It's very simple, okay? Elon Musk, DOJ are cutting the funding of the Democratic Party. They're doing so because when you cut and you reduce the workforce within the U.S. government and bureaucracy, somehow, some way, it influences. We don't know. I have no clue how it influences fundraising sites and Democratic Party fundraising organizations, but it does. Lord knows how it does. But it's interesting how USAID is pretty much 90% of it, erased from existence in terms of funding, in terms of the dollars that go into it. And then suddenly there are problems with fundraising organizations for the Democratic Party. Gee, how does that work out? How on earth is that? What is the link between USAID and Democratic Party fundraising? And it's not just USAID. They're cutting the gigantic bureaucracy. And the Democrats, the bureaucracy is what is the lifeblood of the Democratic Party. Okay? They have a gigantic aircraft carrier called, they have a whole bunch of aircraft carriers called wasteful, potentially fraudulent government programs that somehow, some way, funnel money through non-governmental organizations and donations, political action committees to Democrats. That's according to Elon Musk. And that's why they don't like it. They're told not to like Elon Musk, just like they're told to back certain countries, just like they're told to dislike Trump. If you're a Democrat, you don't really stand for this in this day and age. Generally, you don't stand for anything in particular. You stand for whatever the current thing is that you're told to back. Trump always wanted a wall. He always wanted to enforce immigration laws. He always wanted to engage in strategic tariffs. He always wanted a great economy. He always wanted to end wars. That's what I generally always wanted to do too. I was a little bit more liberal when it comes to immigration. And even now, I'm probably a little bit more liberal than most conservatives. I'm conservative on most things, but I have friends who are dreamers. I want them to become citizens. But see, again, Trump offered dreamer citizenship. Democrats said, no, we're not going to fund the wall. But you do need a functioning border. And Democrats don't even believe in their nonsense. They just straddle the fence, don't enforce laws, and pretend that they do enforce laws during elections, and then they pretend they don't when they want votes. Or, I don't know, I don't know how it works, but they want to be all things to all people. They lie through their teeth about everything. What does the Democratic Party stand for? Okay, well, I don't know. What's a single payer, Medicare for all? Green New Deal? They wouldn't touch the Green New Deal, AOC's Green New Deal with a 10-foot pole. They want nothing to do with it during every presidential contest. They don't run on and then they raise money on single payer. There's a bunch of left-leaning pundits, and they're all fakes and phonies, by the way. They're all fakes and phonies. Like the true-believing ideologues on the far left who listen to these people on various platforms, they don't realize that liberal pundits or progressive pundits or far-left pundits that are on different platforms, they make $500,000 to likely make $500,000 to $1 million a year or more. Okay, they're likely making $50,000 to $100,000 a month, pushing communism and socialism and democratic socialism and the far left ideologies. They're the richest communists that have ever lived. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. They're some of the richest communists and socialists who've ever lived. Anyway, let's continue. And then really quickly, then you get like, oh, the billionaires, man. If you're on the left, all you have is billionaires. That's what props up the left. You think people like the idea? You think people like rampant crime in cities? No. Why would you vote Democrat? Because it's basically like a cult. It's a religion. Stands for nothing. They don't even have functioning primaries. But they had, up until recently, an endless source of funding. That's stopping now. Once you cut the funding, then you start the indictments. It's not rocket science. Then you start arresting people who committed crimes. End of story.
So now, as the chief law enforcement officer in our country, I will insist upon and demand full and complete accountability for the wrongs and abuses that have occurred. The American people have given us a mandate like few people thought possible. We won every single swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of people. We won districts, 2,750. Think of that, 2,750 districts compared to 505. So we won it at levels that have, I don't believe, ever seen before. That's the one where you see the map of the United States and it's all red. Red for Republican, not for communist. Red for Republican. They would like it to turn red for communist, but it didn't work out that way. The American people have given us a mandate and really just a far-reaching investigation is what they are demanding into the corruption of our system. And that's exactly, I'm sure, what Pam and Cash and everyone else mentioned here and not mentioned is going to be doing. We will expel the rogue actors and corrupt forces from our government.
It's so funny how you have Bernie Sanders in the lower right. It's like a microcosm of my political journey in life. Being duped by a person. See, I liked Bernie Sanders 8 years ago, 7, 8, because I thought that he would beat Trump. When you voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016, you generally thought he'd be Donald Trump, somebody who stops endless wars, who protects the working class, which Trump does. That's why these tariffs are important. Unions throughout the world want tariffs. Okay, your unions in Europe, unions in the U.S., unions throughout the world like tariffs as a strategic negotiating tactic. You don't want a tariff for 10 years. No, very bad. Although Democrats kept Trump's tariffs all 4 years. That's another thing. They don't believe in anything they say. They kept Trump's tax cuts and they kept Trump's tariffs. Why did Democrats keep Trump's tax cuts and tariffs? Because they made sense. Let's continue, though.
We will expose and very much expose their egregious crimes and severe misconduct, of which was levels you've never seen anything like it. It's going to be legendary. It's going to also be legendary for the people that are able to seek it out and bring justice. We will restore the scales of justice in America, and we will ensure that such abuses never happen again in our country. And that's why on day one, I signed an executive order banning all government censorship and directing the removal of every bureaucrat who conspired to attack free speech and many other things and values in America. My administration stripped the security clearances of the disgraced intelligence agents who lied about Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. We revoked the clearances of deranged Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, and the crooked law firms that aided their partisan persecutions. And I went through it. These are state and city courts, and the corruption is unbelievable. We also terminated the clearances of the Biden crime family and Joe Biden himself. He didn't deserve it. In fact, he was essentially found guilty, but they said he was incompetent. And therefore, let's not find him guilty, I guess. Nobody knows what that ruling was, but I didn't want any part of it. I think I would have rather been found guilty than what they found with him. They said he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And therefore, he's let him go. I said, I'd rather be convicted, Pam, I think, than that. That was not good. I said, please convict me. Don't say that. I pardoned hundreds of political prisoners who had been grossly mistreated. We removed the senior FBI officials who
are like, he pardoned the January The people who committed crimes in January of 2021. Okay. The people who committed crimes for an entire summer. Law enforcement officials, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of law enforcement officials throughout the country were injured. Buildings were set ablaze. There were billions in property damage according to insurance estimates. Billions and billions more in uninsured property damage. But not one committee member on the January committee cared at all. It was unbelievable. That's the double standard. If you're going to if you want to imprison for 4 years people who committed crimes in January, where are the people who committed? Have Democrats imprisoned anyone that committed crimes? There were 2 people, I think law students, that threw incendiary devices at a police vehicle, and I don't believe they served even 1 day in prison.
Misdirected resources to send SWAT teams after grandmothers and J6 hostages. And it was a great honor for me to fire, I will tell you this, a great honor to fire James Comey. A great, great honor. That was nothing. There was no better day. A lot of people said, oh, that's too bad you did that. And they said that's going to be, and you know what? A year later, they said, that actually saved the administration, because the level of corrupt things that we learned after that turned out to be that they were doing, in fact, really bad things. He was a terrible person, did terrible things, and persecuted people, and all in the guise of being an angel, but he wasn't an angel. We created a brand new DOJ task force and anti-Christian bias, and under Director Patel, we're getting the FBI agents out of the headquarters in Washington, D.C., and back on the streets in pursuit of dangerous criminals where they belong and where they want to be. And, you have that big FBI building, and it's a very big building, and they were going to build an FBI headquarters 3 hours away in Maryland, a liberal state, but that has no bearing on what I'm about to say, but we're going to stop it. Not going to let that happen. We're going to build another big FBI building right where it is, which would have been the right place, because the FBI and the DOJ have to be near each other. You can't that's one thing I did learn from this persecution. The FBI and the DOJ work together. Now, in my case, they work together for bad purposes, but they do. They were always together. So how can you have one that's 3 hours away? But one thing I said to Cash, well, we're going to get a great building built. It's going to be a magnificent building. He said, sir, we don't need that kind of room. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm just going to take a old Department of Commerce building that's about 25% the size, and that's what I need. We're going to have the best staff that you've ever seen, and that's what I need. It's in a nice location, but I don't need that big building. Why don't you just sell the site to somebody? And we're going to be very happy. And they want to have far fewer people, but we also want to have them in D.C., and if for no other reason, we like having law enforcement walking the streets of our capital, because when the bad guys are out there and they see there's an FBI agent, that's the ultimate in law enforcement, and they're not going to be acting so bad. We're cleaning up our city. We're cleaning up this great capital, and we're not going to have crime, and we're not going to stand for crime. And we're going to take the graffiti down, and we're already taking the tents down, and we're working with the administration. And if the administration can't do the job, we're going to have to take it back and run it through the federal government. But we hope the administration is going to be able. So far, they've been doing very well. The mayor's been doing a good job. We said there are tents galore right opposite the State Department. They have to come down, and they took them down right away. And so far, so good. But we want to have a capital that can be the talk of the world. When Prime Minister Modi of India, when the President of France, and all of these people, the head of Prime Minister of United Kingdom, they all came to see me over the last week and a half. And when they come in, I had the route run. I didn't want to have them see tents. I didn't want to have them see graffiti. I didn't want to have them see broken barriers and potholes in the roads. And we had it looking beautiful. And we're going to do that for the city. And we're going to have a crime-free capital. When people come here, they're not going to be mugged or shot or raped. They're going to have a crime-free capital again. It's going to be cleaner and better and safer than it ever was. And it's not going to take us too long. There's a new phenomena that is taking place. where these violent, vicious lawyers that we have all over, they play the ref. You know what playing the ref is? Like the great Bobby Knight basketball coach. He'd scream and scream at the ref. He'd scream. I watched it. By the way, I love Bobby Knight because he endorsed me. And having Bobby Knight's endorsement in Indiana was an extremely good thing. A friend of mine said I was running in Indiana at the time. This was early on, 2016.
So then, like, the wonderful, morally superior journalists are like, oh, then he spoke about Bobby Knight. It's like, so what? You have a man who, more often than, okay, Trump is who he is. He's honest with his personality and who he is. They say, oh, he lies so much. Not like Biden. Not as much as President Obama. Not as much as President Clinton. Not as much as George W. Bush. They're like, oh, the Washington Post had 50,000 lies. Yeah, if you utilized the standard to judge whether something was true or not, Trump's predecessors would have twice as many lies. What the Washington Post did was the most petulant, deceptive, disingenuous thing. We tallied. We give 5.6 Pinocchios to Trump. Did you give Pinocchios to Biden when he said he wasn't stepping down? Or when the Biden administration said they were deepfake videos? No. What about when, I mean, you can go, the servers for yoga, we can go on forever. Trump is the most honest president we've ever had. He wants a wall. He wants to stop wars. He wants tariffs to ensure fair trade deals and fair trade, reciprocity. I mean, he believes in everything he says. The Democrats don't believe in anything. Do they believe in single payer? No. Do they believe in packing the courts? No. Do they believe in ending wars? No. They actually don't even run on that. They don't even care about that. Do they believe in helping the working class? How did they help the working class? Do they even care about the price of eggs? They don't even. It's so hilarious when they talk about, you see, the eggs, oh, they went down. So, like, everything that they claim to care, I don't know, what do they claim to care about? Are their primaries fair and neutral? No. They don't even have functioning primaries. They're told to care about this topic, that topic, this sensibility, that sensibility. So it's whatever the new thing is. Elon Musk was right. They'll just put an icon on their X or, Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Oh, I care about this. Well, you didn't care about it last year. Well, we were told to care about it this year. Oh, okay. That's the modern Democratic Party. With Trump, he's honest. He cares about exactly what he cared about in 2016. He hasn't deviated. Let's continue.
And I was doing great, but a friend came up and said, you know Bobby Knight? I said, no, I don't, but I hear he was a tough cookie. He said, not only tough, he was beyond tough, but he's the most popular guy you can imagine. It turned out he wanted to endorse me. He called me about 2 years before. He said, sir, I'd like to endorse you. I said, is this really Bobby Knight? I said, it's me. I could tell it was Bobby Knight. He had been known for throwing the chair across the court and slapping a player. Can't do things like that, right? And the man that came in fired him. He was a new administrator for the college. That guy didn't last very long. They were like 14-0, and they fired Coach Knight. That was not good, but he had a little chip in his shoulder. But he loved Trump, and he came in and he said, I'd love to endorse you. He said, if you ever run, please call me. So he said, you know Bobby Knight? I said, well, I don't know, but he called me a couple of years ago. It was an amazing phenomenon. I took his number, and on each side of my desk in New York, I had stacks of paper, like nice and neat, but about 2 feet high each. And I said, I wrote his number down and I put it here 2 years ago. And I said, let me see if I can find it. It was almost like a miracle. I had other miracles that happened too. My ear is still throbbing. That was a miracle. That was a miracle also, wasn't it? That was a miracle.
So tell me again how the political violence comes from the right or conservatives. Tell me again.
Also, how are you? Thank you. Thank you, Leo. Thank you. Thank you, my man. That was a miracle. Anyway, okay, that's very nice. Thank you. But so he said, Bobby Knight. So I said, I put his name down and I wrote it down. It's in one of these stacks. I lifted up. There would have to be 2,000 to 3,000 pages in each stack. I lifted it up, the first one, had no idea. And there was his name on a little card, Bobby Knight with his number. It was like incredible. I tell that story all the time. And I called him and dialed a number. He said, "I've been waiting for you to call." And he went out and he made a speech for me in a packed arena in Indiana, and it was over. It was over. He was a tough guy. He actually went a little far, you know. If you remember, he made a great speech because he was actually a motivational type guy, to put it mildly. But he left the stage, and then I'm talking, and he walks back onto the stage. I said, "Uh-oh, this is trouble. Why is he coming back?" He was a big guy, too. Why is he coming back? He said, "May I say a few more words?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead, Bobby, say a few more words." A little different. And he said, "And let me tell you something about this guy, Trump. This guy, if he has to, will use the nuclear weapons that we have. He will use he has no fear. He's going to use, and that's the kind of guy." And he walked off the stage. I said, I think I'm in big trouble, Pam." That was not good, but it worked.
If anyone would save us from nuclear confrontation, it's Trump. That's another thing. Like Bill Maher, it's like, you watch this man, he's so intelligent, Bill Maher, brilliant comedian. He's like, "Oh, yeah, he's against wars. But, you know, what did he say? Yeah, concede or give up." Well, it's not Bill Maher, fighting in these, in Europe. It's like, I don't get this mentality. I thought the Democrats used to, in the 60s, protest against wars. So now they're all for, that's how you go from Bernie Sanders to Trump. The most important thing in the world, the most moral, ethical thing, is to prevent a nuclear war. What president would be better than Trump in preventing? Give me a name of somebody better than Trump in preventing a nuclear confrontation. Biden, we had nuclear confrontations with Biden. Harris, she would have the same foreign policy. She wouldn't change one thing. She stated that. President Obama, okay, he was an extension of Bush's foreign policy in many ways. Okay, and at the end of his tenure, he created a Cold War with his intel agencies. President Trump came in, President Obama's intelligence agencies accused Trump of being a Kremlin operative. That never happened. It never happened before where an incoming president was accused of the outgoing president of being disloyal to the country. It happened under President Obama. Democrats say, "Well, there was no reason to." It's like, well, you don't need a reason to accuse somebody of something they didn't do. You could simply accuse them of something they didn't do and then say, "Well, there's never been this type of terrible human being before." That's what they did to Trump, and Trump got the popular vote. And J.D. Vance will win. I don't think they'll get any. They might not even win the midterms.
Worked out okay. In the meantime, we won the state in a landslide, and it was great, and it was just an amazing period of time. But this is the most amazing period of time. I think this is more amazing. What's taken place has been more amazing. I think it's more consequential, and if we do the job, one of the big media outlets said,
"EXJW, thank you for the kind words. Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciated."
What we did was the most consequential election in the last 129 years. Well, if we do the job that we're all capable of doing, I think it's going to prove to be that and then some. And that's what we want to do. We have a real big shot at making this country so great, so great. What happened to our country was so sad. What they've done in 4 years to our country with the borders, with Afghanistan, the most embarrassing period of time, allowing the Russian situation was never going to happen with Ukraine, allowing October 7th to happen would have never happened because under me, Iran was totally broke. They had no money. They weren't giving any money to Hamas or Hezbollah. It was totally broke. But allowing inflation, look at what inflation's done to people, been so devastating. And now you see that, by the way, price of eggs is down 35% in the last week and a half. We're doing a good job. Brooke is doing a good job. Brooke Rollins and everybody. And inflation's down, interest rates are down, gasoline has come down to a level that we haven't seen in a long time. All things that we wanted to do, because then everything else is going to be coming down. We want it to come down. We want bacon to come down. And groceries, a term I used to use. It's sort of an old-fashioned term, but I used to use it on the campaign trail. Those last 90 perfect, beautiful days, we just hit it. And I want to thank Susie. You have done a great job, Susie Wiles. Great job, Susie. A big magazine just named her the most powerful woman in the world, and that's okay with me. She is the most powerful woman. You think about it, John, right? The most powerful woman in the world, but she's great. And we had a great 90 days. It was a perfect 90 days, and it was a great result, but we want to put that result to good use by doing a phenomenal job. And I want to tell you that Todd and Emil know this very well. We had an amazing judge in Florida, and her name is Eileen Cannon, and I didn't know her. I still don't know her. I don't believe I ever spoke to her, even during the trial, but I did appoint her, federal judge, and these fake lawyers, these horrible human beings, were hitting her so hard, public relations-wise. They were playing the ref. I don't think it's legal. I don't think it's legal. They might as well go out and just shout it in a courthouse. They were saying she was slow, she wasn't smart, she was totally biased, she loved Trump. I didn't know her, other than I saw her.
And the media went after her. The media went after Biden's accuser. The media goes after anyone they don't like. And that's why the media, unfortunately, in many ways, is an extension of the Democratic Party. Not one supporter of Trump at the Washington Post, New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, Atlantic, Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, Esquire, New York Magazine, New Yorker. He won the popular vote. So why isn't there even one supporter of Trump at the New York Times? Not one. You can't have one. Where's the investigative journalism investigating Democratic Party corruption? There are zero stories for the past 8 years in the Washington Post and New York Times. Practically zero stories. A rebuttal could be, well, we talked about this. Not really. The only time they talk about Democratic Party corruption is to say, there's nothing to see here. You shouldn't be suspicious. Let's continue.
The couple of days that I was in court, and I thought her decorum was amazing. Anything bad they could say, though, they were saying about her, it was whatever they could say bad about a human being, all made up, because actually she was brilliant. She moved quickly. She was the absolute model of what a judge should be, and she was strong and tough. And how do you get them to stop if you're a judge? How do you get them to stop with the playing the ref? Bobby Knight would play the ref. That's why I brought up the Bobby Knight story. He would play the ref. He'd scream at the ref. He'd scream so hard. Oh, boy, it was terrible, actually. And the people would come up, his assistant coaches would come up to play. Coach, don't do that. Don't do it. He said he's not going to change his tune, coach. He called it. He's not changing. I don't care. And he's screaming. That's when he threw the chair. He starts going crazy. And he said, no, he's not going to change this time, but he's going to change for the next play. And sure as hell he did. You know, Bobby, by the way, had the last undefeated team in basketball. And relatively speaking, you know, he had a team. He always had a team. He never had that. Well, he had a couple of great players, obviously, some top NBA players, but very few relatively. He had a team, but he won the national championship 3 times. But he had the last undefeated team in basketball. And he would play the ref, and he would scream at him. He knew exactly what he was doing. They're doing the same thing. They said, no, he's not going to change now, but he's going to change for the next one. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to scare the hell. They wanted to scare the hell out of the judges, and they do it. And how do you stop it if you're a judge? Because you want to go home, you have a family, you have children, and the New York Times will write whatever these people say, and the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, and MSDNC, and the fake news CNN, and
why aren't there any Trump supporters at these places? I just want to know. Well, I mean, is there a reason? Not one supporter of Trump, but he won the popular vote and he's a 2-term president. And then, there's a conservative there. Not really. Not really. And then they say, well, the conservatives are, there's There is no such thing as a never Trumper or a Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld conservative. It doesn't exist anymore in the Republican Party. It's a completely new conservative party.
ABC, CBS, and NBC, and they'll write whatever they say. And what do you do to get rid of it? You convict Trump. All you have to do is be really tough on him and ultimately convict him, and they leave you alone. It's totally illegal what they do. I just hope you can all watch for it, but it's totally illegal. And it was so unfair what they were doing to her, but they do it all the time with judges. But in her case, she was very courageous, and it only made her angry. Wouldn't you say? It just made her angry.
So that judge did exactly what she should have done. Number one, the special counsel was not appointed in a legal way. Okay, number two, Jack Smith, apparently, he's 0-3. He lost the John Edwards case. What else did he lost? It was John Edwards and then Trump. Oh, and then the Bob McDonnell case, 9-0 or 8-0 was overturned unanimously. This is years back, the Virginia governor by the Supreme Court. So I think Jack Smith is 0-3. I think. Okay. But Jack Smith went after Trump. Number one, there was an issue with the special counsel. Number two, Trump was a president with the power to declassify. Okay. Number three, the Bureau of either the agents or somebody there trying to imprison Trump on false claims tampered with evidence. They went to Mar-a-Lago and tampered with evidence. This is what you don't hear from the fake, absurd, phony news. The stunt at Mar-a-Lago where they showed classified data at Mar-a-Lago. They had folders made up that said classified data on them, and then they put the papers at Mar-a-Lago in those folders. They spent years saying, well, Clinton didn't know there was no classified markings. Trump didn't have those folders. They literally brought folders with them, tampered with evidence, and then took a stupid public relations photo. And, of course, it was plastered everywhere. And the wonderful, totally truthful news, they said, look, it's right there. They lied through their teeth. Nobody trusts them anymore. Okay, if you trust media and, you can be a paper of record, like a hurricane takes place. Yes, these things happen, of course. And you read about it, God forbid a car accident, God forbid some kind of calamity, somebody's appointed for this, government position. Okay, these things happen. The scandals, the fake, phony, absurd scandals leveled at Trump were completely fabricated. And like I said, I love Bill Maher. He's great. He's fantastic. People like Bill Maher still believe them. They hold on to this fantasy that Democrats are less corrupt than Trump, when Democrats are infinitely more corrupt and disingenuous and deceitful than Trump ever was. In fact, nobody has ever been investigated like Trump and exonerated beyond belief like Trump. I mean, it's true. Where was the Mueller probe leveled at the Clintons or Bidens? There was none. And if Trump indicts people, which he will, it'll be after DOJ completely drains all the funding of the swamp. Then you won't have the same kind of monstrosity protecting people who possibly committed crimes against Trump, his family, and really the American people. Hit subscribe to the channel. God bless you all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. It's going to be a very interesting year. And I look forward to, 2 live streams a day, and we'll do uploads too. Hit subscribe, everybody. Thank you so much.